Optimizing Resilience, the show where we untangle the complexities of sustainability in a developing country like the Philippines. We will be your hosts. I'm Alex.
And I'm Kyle.
And we're thrilled to have you join us for our second episode.
This time we're diving into something that's really gaining momentum here in the Philippines, and that is the topic of electric vehicles. We really want to explore this evolving industry and how it's shaping the country's sustainability efforts. Apart from that, we also have new entrants into the market. Brands like Tesla recently entered the Philippines. We also have BYD, one of the largest EV car manufacturers here in the Philippines already.
And they are now launching some of their full EV models here in the Philippines.
And these are interesting times for the country, for Filipinos. So, Alex, why don't you give us a little snapshot into the EV market in the Philippines?
Okay. Back in the early 2000s, I remember how when the government started the push for modernizing our public transport through our electric jeepneys. Actually, now that I think about it, I see some of them now. The modernized jeepneys versus the old models. Now, the thrust is like you can actually own your personal electric vehicle to have a direct impact on the efforts of climate change.
A lot of these vehicles are also fancier and sexier, and they're definitely designed with the times. It looks pretty nice, I must say.
I think before, if I remember correctly, some of the newer models of electric vehicles looked like Lego toys.
And they're pretty boxy.
Yeah. But now they're very sexy, you are right. The design is now very futuristic. It can really compete with the designs of Audis and BMWs.
I'm also pleased to see Chinese car manufacturers really competing with the likes of Tesla in the manufacturing space of EVs. Asia has definitely been at the forefront of the EV revolution, playing a vital role in shaping the industry through its manufacturing and also technology capabilities. BYD, for example, has been able to expand in many markets, including Europe, Asia primarily, and in addition to government-backed policies to combat climate change, reduce pollution, using more renewable sources of energy, I see that EVs are truly the future. And for me personally, I truly believe that.
I mean, other than the fact that the EV or the electric vehicle itself is becoming more sustainable in design, one of the main components of having an electric vehicle is the battery itself. So even the technology of the battery has been advancing through time. There are now more sustainable ways of recycling the battery. Even in the Philippines, there has been efforts where some facilities where you can actually exchange your battery so that it can be recycled responsibly.
Yeah. So, Alex, why don't we talk about some numbers? How is EV adoption in the Philippines so far? Right now, I understand it's still early days, but I'm curious to know if Filipinos are excited about it, just like us.
Yes. So there's an organization here in the Philippines called the Chamber of Automotive Manufacturers of the Philippines, or CAMPI. And they reported, together with the Truck Manufacturers Association, that in 2023, around 10,000 units were sold. That represents around 2.5% share of the total vehicle sales for that year. And interestingly, around January to August last year, electric vehicle sales already surpassed that number with around 11,186 units, or 3.7% of the total sales. By the end of last year, I think they are expecting to surpass really the last year's figures by around 10%. So that's a lot.
I think also as we move into the future, with the upcoming infrastructure projects like, the accessibility to EV charging stations in public, charging stations that are installed in people's homes, developers, condos, having charging stations in their developments, this will really skyrocket EV ownership in the Philippines.
Yeah, correct. I remember in the past where fiber optic internet was just new and some of the developers were kind of rushing their construction in how on how to install these fiber optic infrastructures in their building. And now that the technology is available, some of the buildings are not fiber optic ready. So I think to really think ahead is also very important to really consider even the buildings that are under construction now, how to already install these charging stations to really push electric vehicles forward, even while the building has not been turned over yet.
For sure. I think if we look at it from a Asia or global context, we do have some numbers here. So, for example, the UAE, they have a goal to have 50% of all passenger vehicles to be electric vehicles. Japan and South Korea, they are also big into the EV space. Not only are they adopting EVs on the roads, but they are essentially car manufacturers, right? So we have the likes of Nissan, Toyota, Mitsubishi, Hyundai, and Kia from
Correct.
Korea.
They're actually one of the first ones that launched the electric vehicles here in Asia with the Nissan Leaf, if you remember.
Exactly.
Like very, very, very early on.
That was a tiny car.
Yeah, maybe very early during that time. But now it has become one of the mainstream electric vehicles of today.
Countries like Singapore, they have plans to have the largest share of EVs by 2040. The plan is to have 80% of all vehicles in Singapore on the roads to be electric vehicles.
Very interesting.
In 2023, in Singapore, EVs account for 19% of all vehicles sold. That shows you thereabouts 1 out of 5 new vehicles sold is an EV. So, EV is really gaining traction. Me being from Singapore, I can also see why, because the infrastructure for EVs is really becoming a pretty gold standard there in Singapore.
I think also in our research, we saw that there are very aggressive plans on developing the infrastructure, really getting it ready, even if the sales of electric vehicles are slowly ramping up.
Exactly. Apart from EVs, apart from the cars itself, I want us to look at EVs also as an industry, right? What that means is that, for example, some countries have taken a bite of the pie from a different angle. Thailand, for example, is part of EV production. I think some of the brands are being manufactured in Thai factories.
Yes, correct.
This in turn creates jobs, boosts the economy, GDP, obviously, but also kind of creates the need for skilled labor. In Thailand.
To really upgrade. Yeah.
In Indonesia, on the other hand, they are more focusing on battery manufacturing and battery technology. So,
because they have a lot of nickel reserves.
Exactly. So, can you imagine how many jobs that would create for a country like Indonesia, right?
Also, the effect of making Southeast Asia as one of the main manufacturing hubs of electric vehicles, where some of the models are being manufactured in different countries, and then the parts, components, and the batteries are also being manufactured in certain countries.
Exactly. And I think as long as you can bring the cost of owning an EV down, more people will adopt EVs as well. So, Philippines, Aleks, tell us about the different types of EVs, because EV is such a general term. I understand that there are hybrids, there are full electric vehicles. So, for our audience, can you give us the different examples of what EVs truly
Right. So, here in the Philippines, there are already several types of electric vehicles that are being offered. They're called a BEV, which is your battery electric vehicle. Some of the brands that fall under this category would be the Tesla Model 3, a Nissan Leaf, a BYD Dolphin.
So these are the EVs that only work with electricity.
Yes.
You have to kind of charge them. They don't work with anything else. There is no petrol engine. There's no hybrid system there.
Yeah, correct. And then there's the hybrid, which are the Toyota Prius, Toyota Corolla Cross, and the Lexus RX 350h. And then third is the plug-in electric vehicles, which are the BYD Tang, Mitsubishi Outlander, Sea Lion, Lynk & Co. a 01 model. So Lynk & Co. also just entered the Philippine market, I think last year. So very interesting. And then, of course, other than the four-wheeled cars, we also have seen two and three-wheeled electric vehicles already. Some of the, at least the popular brands that we see here in Metro Manila is this imported brand called Gogoro.
Uh-huh.
Very, very, very cute scooters also.
Scooters, right?
Yeah.
Or motorcycles, we call it in Singapore.
Mm-hmm.
So I noticed that in the Philippines, there is this big surge towards your plug-in hybrid or your plug-in electric vehicle. Why do you think that's the case? Why do you think Filipinos are not adopting the full EVs just yet? Unlike some countries like Singapore, Hong Kong, and some of these other places.
Right. Here in the Philippines, there are still very limited charging stations. So there is still a big reliance on hybrid models because of the whole range anxiety issue. And you also never know, not only for the fact that you might be traveling with not enough battery, but at least you are assured that there is a nearby gas station in case you really have to gas out.
I see. I think that's usually, with early adoption, that's usually the start for each country. They tend to kind of navigate towards the plug-in hybrid or the plug-in EV rather than the full electric vehicle.
But my question to you is, why do you think Tesla has finally entered the Philippine market?
Well, I think they see an opportunity here as more Filipinos get, are more educated now. They do have, some kind of substantial spending power. However, my thinking is Tesla is still going to be a luxury brand in the Philippines for the next maybe 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. Even for certain models of full electric BYD models, from the people that we know who have actually bought it, they belong to an upper income class.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. And I think that Tesla, just like when it first started in Singapore, is going to be like a status symbol of sorts. Like, oh wow, you own a Tesla.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I believe,
I personally do still get excited seeing a Tesla in person.
We've ridden a Tesla a couple of times in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And that was interesting. The Model X. It's a really, really smooth, comfortable ride.
And very quiet, right?
Super quiet.
Yeah.
I feel super luxurious.
Yes.
Felt like I was in a spaceship.
Very futuristic.
Yeah. So one of the key components, Alex, if you know, a big part of EV adoption is actually government incentives. So what has the Philippines government been doing, or what do they plan to do to make sure or to ensure that people adopt EVs so that it's cleaner for the environment, less pollution?
Right. Here in the Philippines, if you own a electric vehicle, you are actually exempted from the number coding scheme.
So you can drive every day on the road?
Yeah. So, and the traffic enforcers will have an easier time to identify these electric vehicles because they will have a special plate. And then on the registration side, the Land Transportation Office, or the LTO, is also offering a 30% discount on motor vehicle user charges, and then a 15% discount for the hybrid electric vehicles. These discounts will be available until April 2030. So there's still a lot of time to really take advantage, become a first adopter of electric vehicles here in the country.
In some countries where EV adoption is really high, so I would use Norway as an example. The government really played a big hand in that. They really pushed for it. For example, EVs were excluded from paying tolls. They also had free parking, and EVs are able to use the bus lane.
Right. Speaking of bus lanes, actually here in the Philippines, electric scooters that are less than 50 kilograms will be allowed to share the road with bikers or bicycle lanes. So that's also very interesting.
Do you think EVs ever, full electric vehicles, not the hybrid ones, do you think they will ever have to not pay toll, or they would get free parking?
Oh, I wish. I am crossing my fingers right now in case anyone wants to imagine.
I think it'll be interesting if they have a special lane in the Skyway where, if you're an electric vehicle, you just pass on by. You don't pay the fee.
Yeah. Or maybe a certain window for electric vehicles to enjoy free tolls or discounted tolls,
Yeah.
just to push the adoption of electric vehicles.
Yeah. So one of the success points, I watched an interview with the transport minister of Norway. One of the success points she mentioned on why EVs were so successful in Norway was because the government really stick to the incentives. A lot of governments, they have this incentives for the first year, for the second year, and then they kind of pull it back. They kind of dwindle it down, right? But Norway really stick to their guns. And right now, most of the vehicles sold, or almost all of new vehicles sold in Norway, are EV.
Wow. I hope someday we do that too. It really, everyone gets pushed forward with incentives. We need to be rewarded.
So,
I also want to mention that incentives are not only available for buyers, but for car manufacturers as well. Car manufacturers and manufacturing companies who are manufacturing the parts and the components. So, for example, there are zero import tariffs that will be in place until 2028 to eliminate import duties that previously ranged from 5 to 30% on electric vehicles. So I think Toyota is already taking advantage of this as they import some of their hybrid and electric vehicles.
So let's talk a little bit about electricity in the Philippines. Based on our research, charging your car will cost you thereabouts 28 pesos per kilowatt hour, which is very comparable to countries like Singapore, but also way more expensive than certain countries like Finland that averages about 18 pesos per kilowatt hour. How do you think Philippines can really make electricity more affordable so that more people will kind of jump onto the EV bandwagon?
I think this is where renewable energy really comes in, because renewable energy sources will be more, not only more sustainable, but will also be more cheaper. Basically, it will have a direct impact on the charging stations that are available outside the home. But in your house, if you already have solar panels installed, you already practice sustainable ways of collecting energy. That's already some savings on your end on actually charging up your electric vehicle.
Yeah, and
I guess that's also probably why Scandinavian countries are relatively cheaper compared to countries like the Philippines or in Singapore.
yeah. Apart from that, what's interesting is that in certain provinces, they've also started electrifying the PUVs.
Yeah.
The buses, the jeepneys. Tell us more, Alex, about that.
So the government has also been pushing at electrifying the public transportation. Other than the whole PUVMP program, which is the Public Utility Vehicle Modernization Program, there are also other efforts of some, for example, like a tech transport service company called Get Philippines has been partnering with public and private entities to deploy a minibus called Comet 3. So this has been operating in Lipa, Laguna, Davao, Iloilo, and Cagayan de Oro. Would you believe? Like in Mindanao, we already have electric mini buses that are operating there. And then in our beloved Boracay, we have seen e-Jeepneys plying the island. And ever since its implementation, it has drastically reduced the smell of diesel and gas and noise on the island, and which is also very much aligned with their ecotourism goals, especially after the whole island rehabilitation.
It is definitely my wish to see Metro Manila smoke free from all the air
I
pollution.
know. Me too. I worked in Quezon City for a while, and the air pollution and the smoke pollution there is really bad.
Yeah.
But local government, I think late last year, was able to acquire 8 electric buses with a 41 seat capacity with some additional standing room that will be operating along key routes within the city. So that's definitely a start.
That's really interesting, right? Because by this public-private companies operating PUVs, public utility vehicles, that are using electric. My hope is that it gets the general car buyer from the Philippines more confident to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I really pulled the trigger on that full EV car. Maybe I don't have to go hybrid here. And I guess for a consumer as well, when you have the option of pumping fuel, you will tend to pump fuel if you're using a hybrid.
Right. Yeah.
Especially if you don't have an access to a charger at home. And then you don't get that saving.
You don't maximize the savings.
Yeah,
that's correct.
All right. Let's talk about our guest for today. We have an interesting guest.
Oh, yes. So Alvin is actually one of the first adopters of electric vehicles. When very few people were talking about electric vehicles, we went to dinner one time and he tells me, like, check out my new car. It's a BYD. I'm like, what's a BYD?
That's a full electric vehicle.
Yeah. So during that time, I wasn't even interested at full electric yet. I was just interested with hybrid.
So he's definitely an early adopter. We're super excited to speak to him. He'll be coming on this podcast in a bit. But before that, let's cut for our break. And we want to share a message from our sponsor.
Yeah.
Hey there, Filipino go-getters. Are you feeling overwhelmed by your business? Back-to-back meetings, long hours, and endless to-do lists. That nagging feeling you're missing out on something big. 1111 Consulting can help. We believe in collaboration and growth. It starts with a conversation and an idea. We specialize in knowing your competitors, decoding market insights relevant to your business, streamlining your operations, and elevating your business to the next level. We'll help you identify and measure potential markets, generate leads, reach your target market, and reposition your brand so you can finally focus on what you love, running your business. Here at 1111 Consulting, we research and analyze big data to come up with valuable insights to help you get ahead of the competition. Our clients end up making better and more informed business decisions and grow their business. Whether you're a small to medium business or a large corporation, 1111 Consulting has you covered. Visit e11consulting.com today and find out more.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We have our guest here, AJ from the Philippines. Aleks, I'm definitely excited to talk to AJ.
Yep. And I think, AJ, you should introduce yourself to our audience.
No, thanks, guys, for having me, Kyle and Aleks. I'm AJ. I own an EV vehicle to be part of this podcast. Right. I got my car a year and a half ago. Yeah. So I think it is right before a lot of models have been introduced in the Philippines. So yeah, I think back then the most applicable electric vehicle that you can find was BYD. But I think right now we're looking at pouring of all these brands from China coming in, and even Korea, and even Tesla right now. Right? So
exactly.
Yeah, before those, I bought mine. So
yeah,
right. Okay.
And there are so many models right now, AJ, in the market, especially in the Philippines. What I'm curious about to kind of kick things off is what was your thought process about buying your first full electric vehicle? What made the purchase decision easy or tough for you? And maybe if you can run it through with us.
Okay, so I guess I could start my EV story. How right? Like what made me decide to buy? So so early on, because I had been I go to America, I go to like Hong Kong and Singapore, where Tesla was like they're everywhere, right? So I rode my first Tesla like 5-6 years ago. So Tesla was there for a long time already in the U.S., especially in California. So when I rode that, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool, right? And then 3-4 years afterwards, during the pandemic, my wife and I moved to Korea because of her work. So that's where, even before BYD as its peak in other countries, it was Korea who's playing at least as a competition for Tesla.
Right.
That was Hyundai and Kia with their EV6 and Ioniq 5. And whenever I'm out of town to rent a car, especially in Jeju, that's what I would do. I'm actually looking forward in going to Jeju in Korea just because I know I'd rent a car, which is electric vehicle, like an EV6, and how fast they are in an Ioniq 5, right? So
Interesting.
yeah. So because in Jeju, if you want to go around the island, it's a must that you rent a car. So
Right.
yeah.
So you were able to test all these different cars, different models, different makes, and really like experience them for a day or two in Korea. In
Right,
Jeju.
right. So I've driven a Tesla in the US. I've driven the EV brands of Korea. So that made me decide, okay, my next car is probably gonna be an electric one, right?
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, that's how it is. So my first plan was I was gonna buy an electric vehicle in Korea and then ship it to the Philippines. Because the prices of electric vehicle of Ioniq 5 and EV6 is insane here in the Philippines. It's like 3 million to 3.5, right?
I see. So you're definitely
And
cheaper in Korea, huh?
Yeah, and I can buy it in Korea for at least less than 2 million pesos. So that was the idea. That I was like, okay, before my wife's posting, I'll probably buy an electric car and ship it to the Philippines. That was my mindset then, right? And then I keep coming back and forth, Philippines and Korea, and then BYD came. And then I was looking for. I was like, okay, the car that I bought when it was first introduced in the Philippines was at 2 million pesos. This was a BYD Dolphin. Okay. Even if you ask me right now, and even if you check around the world, the right price of an EV vehicle like the Dolphin is supposed to be like just less than 1 million pesos in China, but they're selling it at 2 million pesos here in the Philippines. Okay, so I think it was already the law has been passed already during this time that there shouldn't be any tariff and stuff like that. Okay, and then it went down to 1.9. I'm still not pulling a trigger. It went down to 1.8. I'm like, nah, I'm still not gonna buy it. That's still like close to 2 million pesos, right?
Exactly.
So right. And then then there's another story because I love playing golf. Although the game doesn't like me. Oh, right. So I have this share in a country club that I sold for because I was gonna transfer to another country club. So basically, I was gonna earn from that sale, and then I was like, okay, so I'm gonna sell my car, which is a pickup truck, and then with all that money, I can buy a BYD electric vehicle. And my idea then was, so what I'm doing is actually I'm paying for my golf package because the golf courses are far in the Philippines. It's usually considered the drive going to the golf course and then back whenever you're going to play. And I play like 2 or 3 times a week. So that's my daily commute for work. So that's technically my commute for work. So okay, so if I buy my electric vehicle with this share, I'm basically buying my golf package. And then BYD lessened their price again for another 100,000 pesos. So I'm like, okay, trigger pulled. I bought the car. And then
BYD Dolphin, right?
Yeah,
just
Dolphin.
for our audience out there. Yeah, BYD Dolphin.
It's a 400 kilometer range. In real life, I think it just gives you about 380, 370, right? Okay, but my drive to the golf course is around, just worst case scenario is like 150 kilometers back and forth.
How was the buying experience, AJ? In the showroom, was it similar or akin to buying a ICE car, like an engine car?
I think how electric vehicles are being sold is they really want you to test drive it first. Because
so you got to test drive it.
Yeah. So the idea is because I think that's a selling part of what's one of the selling parts of an EV, regardless of the efficiency. It's the driving experience. So they really want you should try it for you. You should experience it first before we even talk about it. So I think that's how they did it for the dealership that I went to. So I went there, look at the car, test drove it after a month. I test drove it, gave my reservation, and like, hey, where's my car? So
you immediately get it like a week after your reservation?
No, it took me about 3 months to get that car.
Is that normal to have a waiting time?
Well, back then, there's not much electric vehicles coming around.
Right.
So I think for BYD, that was their only dealership. And right now,
Wow,
BYD
this
has
is
like,
just a year ago.
yeah, exactly.
And
So
now there's more. I think
there's
there's
like
also
10,
BYD in
15.
Pampanga now.
Yeah, even as far as Iloilo, Cebu,
Mm-mm.
yeah, there's a lot of BYD. So yeah, so I guess that's how early I was in the BYD purchasing experience. Like
Right.
I wouldn't say they would treat you like a king, but they would really like tell you like how different it is in driving your electric vehicle, right? So I just
Interesting.
drove it. I drove it in the streets of Makati. So I'm like, okay, I'm fine. So actually, I did
Oh,
try to imagine myself like, okay, nobody drives 200 kilometers a day.
Sure.
And
that's
then
true.
the range of my car is 400. And then the thing is, my house has a solar setup. So technically,
Mm-hmm.
my idea was I'm probably just paying for nothing because I'm charging it during the day while I'm at home because my home is where my office is. It's just right there. So
Right.
yeah, so that's the idea. That's how I computed it. Now, yeah, instead of like paying for my gas on a monthly basis around 10 to 15,000 because
Mm-hmm.
of my usual trip to the golf course, it went down to at least I think I got an additional bill on my Meralco at least 1.5, but I think it should be 2.5 if I didn't have solar because I usually charge like at night also. So
Oh,
yeah, so that's a big saving if you ask
yeah.
me. Yeah, so
Very
yeah,
big savings. From
yeah,
10 to
so
15,000 a month to an additional 1,500 on your Meralco bill.
yeah, so the thing is, I think in America it's normal to have like high mileage in your car because your drive is always far, right? But then
Yeah,
over here,
correct.
my I think my Dolphin within a year it was able to get accumulate like 20,000 kilometers,
Mm.
uh, and
Okay, just for
then
reference, AJ lives in Cavite and frequents Metro Manila.
yeah, Metro Manila and even the
And
farther places in Cavite.
yeah, yeah.
Right, yeah. So technically, my work is just right beside my house, but my daily drive is I go out every day,
You go out a
almost.
lot.
I go out a lot, right? So
Mm-mm.
yeah, so that's the thing. That's why they were asking me. Well, in Tagalog, they were like, ano ka, nag-grab? Because,
Right.
20,000 kilometers is actually very far for,
Yeah.
even if your work is just right there beside your house. Yeah, so I think, and I tried to compute it, right? At 20,000 kilometers, I would have spent around, I don't know, 120,000 pesos, 150 for gas, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, and then not to sound, like a sales agent, but so the thing is, my maintenance is one of the factors when you're buying a car, right? How much the maintenance costs. Okay,
Yeah.
so I did my PMS for the Dolphin because technically there is no change oil because there's no oil to change. My bill was around 1.5, and
Insurance remains the same, AJ.
insurance. Okay, so the first offer, because I was the early adopter, right? They wanted me to pay for like 50,000 pesos for the insurance. Like, what the hell? No.
Oh
Like,
wow.
yeah, any 1.7 million vehicle would only cost as much as like 35 or 30, right? So
That's even high.
yeah, that's high. So I
Yeah.
got a friendly broker of mine, for insurance. I told her, hey, if you can give me this, I'll tell everyone I got this from you. So they were able to give me like during that time I think at 31,000 pesos for the insured car. So I think that's pretty
Yeah.
reasonable, right?
That's pretty comparable to a normal engine
Yeah,
vehicle.
for a normal engine, right? So it's already comparable, 31,000. And then I was able to give her like 3 to 4 more people to insure from her. It's like, see, I did good. I told her like give me this price and I'll
That
refer
was
you
an
to you.
instant ROI.
Yeah, so yeah, don't worry, I got you. Just insure us. So
So,
I think
AJ,
go ahead.
I do have a question, right? Sorry to cut you off, but one of the biggest indicators of your purchasing decision was because you mentioned you had this solar setup
Hmm.
in your home. So, how do you have the know-how and the knowledge to kind of do that and create an environment where you can charge your car quite easily? Because I assume because you are a early adopter of sorts, this would be far and a few for someone to kind of have their own home charging setup to charge their car.
Right. Yeah, that's actually a good question because even early on, I've been working on solar or renewable energy. I mean, not as a business, but I do know we need it, right? So that's why I think, yeah, my solar installation at home is like 2018, 2019. Still a bit expensive then compared now. But we got it anyway. So that means early on, I have that impression that I do advocate for renewable energy and something sustainable as producing your own power at home, something like that.
Yeah.
So that's why I've always been looking at batteries, always been looking for solar panels, power plant producing setups at home or even for commercial. So the environment of we're looking at on renewable energy, especially for batteries, is very different way back 5 years ago. And I think that's what's driving the EV industry that we are on right now. That's why I think EVs are even at price at the ICE, almost the same.
Almost
Even
the
cheaper.
same, yeah. It's very, very competitive. Speaking of batteries, it's not only applicable to these electric vehicles for four-wheel ones, but there's also a lot of 2- and 3-wheel electric vehicles being sold already.
Oh yeah. To be honest, it's quite surprising because I went even before the pandemic happened, because we were exploring on solar panels already and for renewable energy. So I went to Guangzhou in China and of course Shanghai. The streets are like insanely quiet.
Oh wow!
because most of the motorcycles, the scooters,
Right.
it's just
Or electric.
It's just electric. And I'm like, what the hell was that? It's not the electric bikes that we have over here. It's really like the normal scooters and motorcycles that are electric.
Yeah.
And it's a normal basis. Yeah, I think that's going to happen pretty soon in the Philippines.
How do you compare like air quality wise versus places like this you mentioned in Beijing, in Seoul, South Korea versus Metro Manila?
Okay.
Do you definitely see a distinct improved in quality?
I don't think a certain amount of energy vehicles can make the Chinese fog in Shanghai disappear.
Any better?
Any better. I mean, that yellow dust is really just going to come over all over the world. Even that yellow dust in China, we experienced it in Korea when we were there. We had to wear a mask. And those, I mean, not to sound racist, but those Koreans would just tell me, oh yeah, because it is Chinese yellow dust. I'm like, what? but if you're going to look at it, it's really coming from there. So,
Okay.
Pollution-wise, I think they're heading in the right direction. China is heading in the right direction because of, not just because of vehicles. I think it's more of the whole ecosystem where they do solar and hydro to convert all their factories and stuff like that. Yeah, but it's gonna take a while, and it's not just the EV. But in terms of noise pollution, I think it pretty much help a lot in China and in other parts of the world, I guess. Because in Korea, most of the cars, if they're not gas, they're like hybrids and electric. So it's pretty much a very quiet neighborhood if you go around, I guess.
Okay. Well, I'm really looking forward to the public utility vehicle modernization program here, where all our jeepneys are electrified and we don't hear the jeepney noise.
Well, I think on that note, because electric public utility vehicles were introduced at a very high premium price in the Philippines. Hopefully, they try to change that this year or in the future, because they can see all the passenger vehicles getting low. So at least it's not like you can do that and keep the price of their buses high. So it's eventually going to go down, I guess.
Right.
AJ, I've got a question for you. So with the rise of EVs around the globe and also primarily in Asia, as a typical Filipino buyer, I see a lot of people are still going for the plug-in hybrid route, right? Like the plug-in EV. One of the popular models that kind of just launched in the Philippines that I see on the roads is the BYD Sea Lion 6. To my understanding, that's a plug-in hybrid.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, why are people still going the plug-in hybrid route as opposed to a full-fledged EV like yourself? Is it like they're still not very comfortable with the idea? Are they worried about range anxiety? Is it a lifestyle thing? How do we push people also to kind of go the full EV route?
Okay, so I don't know if Alex told you this, but I actually own a Sea Lion as well. But it's not for me. It's not for me. So I'll tell you a story how we bought it and why we bought it. Okay, so it's for my dad, right? So he retired, so he has his Fortuner, a typical Filipino SUV, the Toyota Fortuner, right? So this is like a 5-6-year-old SUV. So here's the story of how it happened. So maybe you guys can relate. You can relate, or maybe I don't know, get familiar as how it happened. So I was filling on the expenses that we have, and one of the expenses that SUV, the Fortuner, it costs about 38,000 to 40,000 for the maintenance because it's a 5-6-year-old car, so you had to spend for the maintenance, right? And then because he's retired, he has any retired boomer would be like, oh, reunions, oh, let's do go there. Yeah,
I want to go here and I want to go there. We should do a road trip.
Right. You gotta explore everything that you missed out when you were younger. So I was looking at he has more expense on gasoline than myself. And I'm a very active individual, and I travel. And it's like, okay, so I'm looking at a 15,000 peso to 20,000 peso monthly expense on gasoline for my dad.
Okay.
And we're covering about 20 to 30,000 to 50,000 pesos of maintenance a year. I did the math. I'm like, okay, if I sold his car and pay for monthly amortization and buy the Sea Lion at 1.5, so basically, like, I did the math about, okay, a down payment of 900,000, and then you loan the 600,000 pesos or more or less. The amortization of that would be way less than the monthly payment and the maintenance. So I told my dad, Pa, you're not going to pay for anything. You're not going to release anything, any money. Just tell me I can replace the car today. Okay. This was over lunch, right? I sold it. I posted it on Facebook at 1 p.m. And then within 2 hours, some guy came over to the house and bought it for $950 at 3 p.m. So I'm like, wow. So the thing is, that gives you an idea on how much people like,
a Fortuner.
A Fortuner and Toyota. We're like, oh, Toyota Fortuner at $950. Take my money. Shut up. Here you go.
So this brings me to my next question, right? Your dad, obviously, he's a baby boomer. He's obviously in his 70s, 60s, 70s, AJ?
Yeah. No, 61, 62.
Okay. So how is someone in their 60s operating a kind of EV vehicle, right? Which is, in this case, a Sea Lion, a plug-in hybrid. Does he have any trouble operating it? Or it's almost like a new car? There's no learning curve, basically.
I mean, don't get me started with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay.
Those are the tough ones, huh?
How do I connect my music?
Anak, how do I do this? Anak, it's showing my messages in the screen. So I think what happens is you just have to guide them first and like, okay, just set it up where they'll be comfortable, and then they just, at one point they just drive the vehicle and not think about anything. That's right. So when he got his vehicle, I pretty much did like a 1 week setup for his car. And like, hey, how do you want this?
Okay.
Oh, wow, what are your temperature? Okay, so I gotta register his Android Auto on the phone, just so, and then his Waze, how to use his Waze and Google Maps on the car. Yeah.
Okay.
So, pretty much. I mean, I think my dad is relatively a techie guy somehow, so you could get it. But yeah, it took a while for Android Auto and Apple CarPlay to sink in.
But what about the whole driving experience?
Charging
Does he
experience.
worry that he's gonna run out the battery?
Right, so that was the concession or the compromise why we got a Sea Lion. Because because he wants to travel 300-kilometer trips to Bicol. Go back. Any question I think of a boomer, their standard question for cars is, can it go to Baguio?
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
my answer was yes, it can go to Baguio back and forth in a full tank of gas and would still a lot of kilometers to cover. It's like, okay. So I think Kyle doesn't get this, but yeah, that's like the standard of a Filipino boomer and asking how
Yeah.
good a car is. Can it go up
How
to
far can
Baguio?
it drive?
Can it go
I'm
back?
definitely learning.
Yeah, can
I've
it
been
go
to Baguio
Baguio?
before. It's a long drive for sure.
Yeah,
It's a long
exactly.
drive to Baguio.
And you know those cars are horsepower wise, they're not that high. You know, a Toyota Revo back then will have a hard time going up that
Yeah.
Yeah.
up that mountain. But yeah, so that was the question. Like, can it go to can it go or reach Baguio? I was like, yeah, it can, and you don't have to worry about charging because it's a plug-in vehicle. So I think the selling point of Sea Lion was that it's 1,100 kilometers for a full tank of gas and a full charge.
Yes, I think it's 1,100 kilometers for a full
Right.
charge and a full tank of gas.
And who drives that in a day?
So how about charging the car, right? Charging the car. Does your dad know how to do it right now?
Yeah, so it could be done easily at home already. So that's the thing with EV vehicles. If you don't have a charging place at home, I think you better think twice about,
Owning a electric
owning
vehicle.
one, because waking up every day on a full tank is such a convenience,
Lifesaver.
especially that's why you bought an electric vehicle. So that's why I think plug-in hybrids are a thing. It could be a thing in the metro because of the condominiums.
Right.
But yeah, but for us in the suburbs, I think most of the people who bought electric vehicles are living in Alabang, Parañaque with all their detached vehicles. And I can see actually a lot of BYDs coming over in Cavite. It's like, okay, yeah. They're getting popular here, I guess, because that's where the houses are. That's where you can do your solar. That's where you have your own plug to put your car in. That's where you have your own garage. So yeah. So I guess not unless condominiums start building where they can have their own plug, and that's kind of hard to accept because I don't know if you guys checked. Ayala released their chargers for public, right? And they're going to charge you at 28 pesos per kilowatt hour.
Exactly. I was having this conversation with Aleks just earlier about the different prices for charging. So tell us more. So you never basically charge your car outside for now.
I would charge. That's the benefit of being an early adopter like before, because even in BGC you could see that in Uptown we have preferred parking in Uptown in Uptown malls. It's basically right there in front of the entrance, and we don't pay for anything. We just get even at SMs we have priority parking, but now they're full. They're always with cars.
So Shell also has this Shell recharge station, and right now all the branches in Metro Manila are charging it for free. The ones in 7 Neo, Estancia Mall, Green Hills, some of the Robinsons malls, in Galleria, in Manila, Magnolia. Oh, and there's also one in Bridgetown.
Yeah, it's actually convenient that there's a lot. So I think I know worst case scenario. If suddenly I ran out of a battery, I know where to go. So it's nice knowing that. But
so you feel safe when you're inside Metro Manila?
Yeah, but then the thing is, for 400 kilometers, you're
not really going to run out of battery.
You can circle around Metro Manila thrice or 4 times and still be enough to, Metro Manila is not that big. Yeah, that's why, Metro Manila is not that big. So, and actually, I saw a post, I think 4 or 5 months ago, because for some reason, I see it on Facebook that some people are still a bit, bashing about electric vehicles. And they're saying that the traffic is like an enemy of EV because you'll be anxious about, running out of miles or kilometers on your car. But technically, you don't lose kilometers over traffic. I mean, that much. I mean, I can leave the car on and not move for more than 24 hours, and it'd still be 50% more energy, or even 60%. So the traffic is not a problem. Going around Metro Manila is not a problem. Actually, EVs are actually better off in the metro rather than long drives. right?
For sure, for sure. EVs are definitely created for city driving, for
Right.
people who live in a metro. Okay, AJ, I've got a question for you. Next question
Sure.
here. This is an interesting one. I think we'll be debating this a little bit. So, as you know, Tesla just entered the Philippine market.
Mhm.
And we all know that Filipinos love their SUV.
Right.
Tesla has actually released some prices of what they're going to sell their stuff for. And for our audiences out there, Teslas are all full EVs, by the way. So there is no hybrid, there's no nothing. It's all like a full EV vehicle. So AJ, they are selling their Model Y, the performance model, for 3.3 million pesos. What do you think of that price?
To be
Because
honest,
at that price point, you can get something a bit more fancier, like a BMW or Mercedes. And,
but they're not
you're,
electric though.
You're in the Range Rover.
you're already in the Range Rover territory
Yeah.
there. You know? You get
Yeah. Yeah, actually, to be honest, when the Tesla came over here, I was like, okay, they actually put up a pretty cool price for electric vehicles. I'm sure the perception is it's a bit pricey compared to other electric vehicles. But what I know of with my friends who own a Tesla is you don't buy a Tesla because it's an electric vehicle. You buy it because of the technology that it has as a car. The way Tesla has a full self-driving feature in other places, that's actually pretty good if you were to apply it in the Philippines, right? If you're talking about the Model Y, you're probably going to compare to an SUV of BYD, right? Which is if the Sea Lion 7 is going to come out, I'm not sure how much they're going to price it, but I'm sure it's going to be around 2.5 to 2.8. So if you're going to compare that to a 3.1 million vehicle in the Philippines, so it's actually pretty competitive to have a 200 to 300,000 peso premium to buy a Tesla. And to be honest, when so Tesla came out, my brother is telling me, okay, so try not to buy another BYD because it's gonna be irritating having another BYD in the house. Can you just buy a Tesla next time you want to have an electric vehicle? So at least it's different by brand. So that actually makes sense. So at least you're not banking on one brand. But yeah, I think Tesla would work with their price point.
Yeah. So my next thought on this is Tesla entering the Philippines, AJ. It seems like at this sort of price points, right? They have the Model 3 rear-wheel drive starting at 2.1 million, the Model 3 Performance at 3 million, and then, as mentioned earlier, the Tesla Model Y at 3.3 million pesos.
Mm-hmm.
It almost seems like they are really not catering to the masses, right? Because a lot of the masses, the general populace in the Philippines, they simply wouldn't buy the car because of affordability.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, go ahead.
No. Yeah, and that's my point, right? That's what I'm trying to have a go at.
No, if anything, it's not supposed to be for the regular car market. If we're looking at Tesla, I mean, the price point of Tesla is actually it's somehow a premium electric vehicle, I guess.
Yeah. So you would put Tesla in the Philippines as a luxury brand for now, at least.
No, I wouldn't say luxury, but at least a notch higher than BYD.
Okay.
So how I could compare is like I would see BYD as like a Toyota of electric vehicles, right? They're reliable. To be honest, for lack of a better term, BYD is a boring electric vehicle. It's just it tops out. It's not great at everything, but it's good at whatever it does.
Yeah.
But Tesla can launch your vehicle very very fast. So, but I think BYD is gonna catch up. But the thing is, for now, BYD is like a Toyota. And then, some people would buy a Lexus. It's not that, it's not a Mercedes. It's not a Rolls Royce, but then, it's up there. It's above that, BYD. It's above a Toyota. So I don't know what to place, because I never bought a Toyota for myself. I'm usually on the odd brands like, Ford and Hyundai. So, yeah, so something like that. So if you're going to tell me if I put Tesla as a luxury vehicle, not luxury-ish, but I don't know what the term for that. It's not Toyota, like above that, but not definitely not an Audi. Something like
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
So I have a question. I know you're also very much into sustainability, like I am.
Mm-hmm.
What are your concerns with battery health, and what are your plans of like when the time comes and you need to replace your battery?
Right. I think if it's supposed to be about sustainability, even I think can I just add, even just not sustainability, but also security, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it makes sense that we get batteries because we don't have oil for our cars, so we have to import everything, right? But for batteries and renewable, we can source our power from the sun. And batteries, we do have mining facilities actually in the Philippines that we can source. But then the problem is we just don't know how to we're not, progressive or industry realized enough to
Right.
to create our own. Okay.
Yeah.
So moving forward, sustainability, batteries are actually getting cheaper. And the technology and the material that they require I'm sorry to sound technical, but so there are like 3 batteries that has gone now in the world of EV, right? The first one is nickel cadmium. Okay, the second one is lithium, which is what BYD is using now. And then next is sodium phosphate. So sodium is more abundant in the world. So technically, if you're going to look at it, EVs are the materials for creating batteries or producing batteries are getting more cheaper because the material because the source is more abundant day by day. So how I see electric vehicles in the technology of battery is it's going to be cheaper. It's going to be more sustainable in the future rather than this fossil
Inaccessible.
fuels. Yeah, it's going to be more accessible, definitely. Because even in the solar rooftop that we do, a background, my brother does solar rooftop systems in houses, and we offer batteries. It actually went down 50 to 60% already. So that's a trend. It's going to go down. I mean, I'm not sure if we can see the lowest point yet. But because of the material that they're testing for battery is even up to a sodium, which is everywhere. So that says something. So I'm expecting my Dolphin, is at 400 kilometers. In 10 to 15 years, maybe it'll degrade to just 80% to 70. It'll go at 300 kilometers. By then, I'll just give it to my niece or something, so she couldn't go any farther. Right?
Just within Cavite driving.
It's just like, I know where you're going, right? You can't go anywhere. But still, 300 kilometers is a bit far. It's a big place to lose. Go ahead.
For context, like your normal engine vehicle also has wear and tear. Your engine is not as efficient as it was when you bought it new. Tires degrade. All the moving parts in the engine vehicle also degrade. So it's only fair for us to also kind of accept that EV cars naturally would degrade to about 17 to 20%.
Definitely agree.
Yeah. Okay. For sure.
Right. But just to add, right? So the thing is, I think it is what people experience with Tesla. There are 10 to 15-year Tesla cars that are still running right now in the US. 2009 models. And they're still good. They're still running pretty fast. And their battery, they just replace their batteries. When they replace their batteries,
it's kind of good as new.
It's kind of good as new. Because I think there's not much moving parts in an electric motor rather than an engine.
Right.
So it's easier to maintain. So longevity-wise, I think because I haven't tested a 10, 15-year electric vehicle, but I think it'll get there compared to a high maintenance ICE. Right.
I must say, AJ, sorry to sidetrack here, but I'm really impressed by the Chinese car manufacturers who have been really pushing out high quality EVs, especially BYD. They are also coming up with the Sea Lion 7. That one is a full electric in some markets. I'm not sure if they're going to be available in the Philippines. And then you have brands like Dongfeng, Xpeng, and these brands are...
And there's Link & Co.
Link & Co,
yeah,
right?
Link & Co.
So all these brands are really being very competitive, and they are also outpricing. And BYD definitely in the Philippines is outselling Tesla. How do you see the acceptance of Chinese brands for Filipinos? Because you are a consumer, you are a believer of sorts.
I think it doesn't speak well to a certain generation where it doesn't speak too well. That introducing a Chinese car. To be honest, I was in a conference to I think November. I was sitting beside a guy, and he was telling me he doesn't know that I own an electric vehicle from China. And he's telling me, why would you buy right? It's insane. Why would we buy a car from China? These are not good. They still have that impression that China is not a good car. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the car, not the country. But then, I think if it speaks to a generation, they will actually accept it. There's I think there's only a certain generation, like 50 years old or 60, where you cannot convince them to buy a China. Much like the people who didn't like buying a Kia Pride way back. So I think that mentality, people trust American before Japan, and Japan from Korea, and then Korea from China. I think we're looking at that transition.
Right.
Because I can never see how good China did it for the EV batteries and the cars, the way other than Tesla. But for the record, Tesla gets their battery from China. So
from China, yeah, exactly. A lot of the car components and parts and some of the batteries are being manufactured in Asia.
Yeah, so the only selling point of Tesla is not about the battery. The selling point of Tesla is their technology. And that's it. That's what BYD could not get. So, looking at that standpoint.
But also, since we're now a different generation, millennials and even the Gen Zs, when they can finally afford to buy their own cars, they're already more open-minded. They are not looking at where or who made this, but more like what is my return on investment in terms of value proposition.
Yeah, so that's true. Because I go around with my electric vehicle, and then it's always a conversation starter. Like, oh, you own an electric vehicle? How's it drive, right? So I always tell them hey, you have to try it first. So one story or two, during the New Year, I was with my family and our cousins, and they tell me, hey, I have a Sea Lion over there. You want to try it out? Okay. So I told them you should floor it. It's the only way you're gonna like it. I mean, it's just the only way you can differentiate a car of an ICE to electric vehicle.
Right.
And then he was like, what the hell? This is very responsive. Yeah, this guy has never driven. He's only been driven Fortuners, a Honda Civic, and they're pretty good vehicles. But then you step on a Florian electric vehicle, what the hell? Right? And then there's my.
It's really the driving experience.
Yeah. So some people would actually compare some haters, I guess, would say. Why would you buy an electric vehicle? I'd rather buy a Vios or Espresso, same small car, more economy, but they never actually drove it. So I think that's how you can speak to the public and convince them to drive the car. It's not just about the efficiency; it's the driving experience.
So AJ, we're moving towards the end of the podcast, of this episode at least. I have a final question for you, and I think we will speak quite a bit on this final part of our podcast. I guess my question is, you are well traveled, so am I. We've been to Singapore, Hong Kong. You currently live between Metro Manila and Seoul, South Korea. What can the Philippine government do to, number one, advocate for EVs? Advocate for sustainability, and really push and incentivize people to own full electric vehicles? That's the first part of the question. And then how does infrastructure of charging stations tie in with this, right? What does the government do in that aspect as well?
All right. So government-wide, I think they already did. That's why there's a lot of brands coming in the Philippines. There's basically zero tariff for importing an electric vehicle. So before I was planning to import a car from Korea going to the Philippines because of that tariff. But when they passed the law, electric car went down. That's where an ICE vehicle would almost be priced as an electric vehicle in the Philippines. That's what happened, I think. And then I think that's why there's a lot of chargers in the malls, because they required malls to have a charging station. What I would want or would appreciate is regulating the price at less than that of, not 28 pesos, at least 15. Like
at least be as competitive as charging it at home.
Yes. So that way, even in the condos people are living in the condos who doesn't have their own plug in their parking spaces, they would be able to think of buying an electric vehicle. Because other than that, infrastructure-wise, I think they're available in the metro where you would usually have electric vehicles to come and go. But I think one of the game changers is if the national building code will dictate that every parking slot or a parking slot should have, or at least a percentage of the parking lot should have plug ready. I think that would be like if I were to buy a parking lot in Ayala, where an option for a parking lot would have your own meter for your plug. That would make it very practical to have an electric vehicle in the metro.
I think the EVIDA covers that, the Electric Vehicle Industry Development Act. Yeah,
No,
that
I
for
think
new
that-
developments.
They should have a plug.
Yeah, that there
Oh.
should be an allocation for charging stations.
Okay. Charging station is different. Charging station is for the public to pay, and then because with
share.
the way to share. With that model, you're going to wait around like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, right? So well, of course, I think we're expecting in the near future charging your car would mean as if you're charging your car. I mean, gassing up your car. But that would mean a better infrastructure, a more expensive infrastructure. That would drive the cost of charging even more. Because that's the reason the price in Ayala is 28 pesos. It's not about the cost of the electricity. It's the cost of infrastructure that it could charge your vehicle 0 to 100 in 20 minutes or 30. So that's why it's expensive, right? But if I have in my condominium my own plug at home where I park, I charge, just like I would do in the suburbs, that would be really amazing, I think. Right? Because like I said, I can never stress enough how important it is that you have your own plug at home. So if you're, because waking up every day with a full tank is, you can never say that in a car.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
For sure.
So I hope I answered that question on how, because I think they already do. It's just a matter of implementing it better. Like all the laws are in place. All the initiatives that's supposed to be in regulating, all to encourage are there. It's just a matter of full blast implementation, I guess. More charging parking spaces in the malls, I guess, because right now it's hard to get a spot already.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see a reason why, with the right infrastructure, with the right amenities to charge your vehicle, a lot more people will not adopt EVs, because you do save a pretty penny every month when it comes to fuel versus electricity costs. To charge your vehicle versus pumping in gas. I think it's a matter of time, and I'm really excited to see how the future will bode for Filipinos in this aspect.
Agree, definitely.
AJ, thank you so much for coming on our podcast.
All right.
We are so pleased to have you, and maybe we'll catch you guys soon on our next episode. And once again, thanks.
Yeah,
All right,
thank you so much for having this chat with us.
Right. Anytime, guys. Thank you, Colin and Alex.